All right, it's your boy MBK in the building. Today we're talking about Terminator 2. I got a special guest with me being Chino. And I'm going to put Chino's TikTok in the description for sure. And he's a really great dude. Feel free to introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? My name is Chino. Like you said, I'm on TikTok. I like to talk about movies. I'm no critic. I'm just a fan of movies. Just I've loved movies my entire life, and it's a passion of mine to not only watch and enjoy movies, but I also collect physical media. So I'm
Yeah.
big on the physical media stuff. I collect, all the fun little things. We got little Funko Pops all over the place. You guys can see it's a little blurred out. There you go.
I got
There
mine
you
too
go.
right here.
Nice. Alien Romulus.
Yeah, brain.
Let's go. So yeah, I mean, it's all about movies. I love, all movies. Doesn't matter the genre. I'm all
Yeah.
for anything as long as it's entertaining and as long as makes me feel good. I'm good with it.
Oh, 100%. We just love movies. We love talking about it. We have nothing but love for movies most of the time.
Yes. Yes.
Most of the time, because there's some stingers out there, but most of the time, yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, we run into, it sucks when you're really hyped for a movie and then it doesn't turn out as you want it to be. Actually, Alien Romulus, I know we're not here to talk about Alien Romulus, but I was so hyped for that movie. I was so hyped. I and when I get hyped for a movie, I don't consume a lot of what they put out prior to, right? So like if they drop a teaser, I'll watch the teaser and that's it. I don't watch any other trailers just to avoid spoilers. I was so hyped for that movie when Fede Alvarez was announced as a director. Man, I could not wait, and I have to say that it was probably my most disappointing time in the movie theaters.
I had the opposite reaction,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that later, man. Going into T2 Judgment Day, do you have a first time memory watching this film by
Oh
any
yeah,
chance?
absolutely. So Bilal and I were talking before we started recording, and he was asking how old I was, and I told him I'm old enough to be your grandfather, basically. So when I saw Terminator 2, it was a very, very long time ago. I was 5 years old, and I was living in Costa Rica, and my neighbors had a what I consider to be a big screen TV. It probably wasn't. It was like a 42-inch, but to me that was a big screen TV. And they had a VCR and they had a bunch of VHS. And two of the VHSs that they would allow me to see, one was Top Gun and the other one was Terminator 2. And that was my first time watching Terminator 2 at my neighbor's house. And I probably would come over every weekend after the first time to watch that movie. I loved it. I thought it was incredible. And as a 5-year old, it's more of a spectacle. You don't necessarily understand everything that's going on in the movie, but you see the action, the set pieces, and the music. It all resonated with me, and I
Yeah.
loved it. And that was I mean, it was such an impactful movie that even as a 5-year old, I was able to retain the impression that left on me. And since then, it's actually my favorite movie of all time. Excuse me, of all time.
Favorite movie of all time. That's
It
fantastic.
is.
For me, I think my first time memory was probably during 2012. I was playing a lot of Black Ops 2 during then, and I wasn't really a movie buff until later. But one of my friends put me on a Terminator 2 at my crib, and then I watched it, and it was absolutely mind blown of seeing these big action set pieces, the sci-fi adventure, especially in the opening scene. Seeing an absolute menace of a Willie with T-1000 played by Robert Peck. And just see this like really unique father-son relationship between the Terminator and John Connor was something really great in there. And obviously Sarah Connor. I need those biceps. I need to start going to the gym. There we go. That's
Yeah, yeah. She does more pull-ups than I do. That's for sure.
I can't even do one right now.
Well, we can work on that.
Yeah.
I'll send you my workout plans after this is done. I'll get you going.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had the chance to meet almost everybody from that movie. So I've met Robert Patrick. I had him sign a copy of Terminator 2, actually my DVD,
Oh
because it
wow,
was
damn, that's sick.
yeah. So I had to make sure he signed it. I did meet Edward Furlong, who played John Connor. He also signed my copy of Terminator 2, so I have both of their signatures on there. And I met Arnold years back. I was
Oh, you met
actually,
Arnold?
yeah, well, I met him not in the traditional way. So without giving away too much, because I can't really talk about it, but the line of work that I do, what I can say was that I was filming Arnold. I was filming an interview for Arnold. And that was the first time I met him. I met him multiple times after that, but the very first time was work related. So I was in the room holding a camera and just chatting it up with him, and it was you can't just be like, oh my god, I love Terminator, you're amazing, like it's business, so you have to treat it as business.
Yeah, you
So that
got
was a
like
very different experience than everybody else, but excuse me, all the other people that I've met, it was at cons, and that's the place to like chat with them and all that. So yeah.
yeah, like speaking of business, if I see like well, not business in general, I won't like fanboy over an actor. I'll
Yeah,
be like I'll treat them like a human being because
exactly.
that's how they are. Because I don't want them to feel uncomfortable and see this crazy fan just yelling, "Oh my god, I love you in this movie so much! Oh my
Yeah.
god!" Like, nah, that's not my style. Because I met like a couple of people in con. I mentioned me more, which was dope. John Bernthal and Charlie Cox, which
Oh,
was
nice.
sick. Yeah. Um,
How tall is John Bernthal?
I'm taller than him, apparently.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
Okay.
Google say he was 5'11", so it must be tripping
Mm,
or something. I don't
yeah.
know.
No. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, he doesn't look that big. He doesn't look that big at all.
I mean,
But he's
you mean tall because he's a big guy for
yeah.
sure.
What's the way they film them too, right? Like they do that with Tom Cruise. They film a lot of him from like underneath to give the illusion that he's taller. So like if there's certain scenes, if you ever notice, they have him just slightly under if there's other actors that are male and happen to be taller than him.
Yeah. You know what I like about this movie? In the beginning, you see John Connor ride a motorcycle, and then you see the Terminator ride a motorcycle, and it just has like a little parallel between Terminator, John Connor being somewhat similar characters, and you
Hmm.
see that dynamic grow. What did you think about like that little dynamic in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because you learn, obviously, as you're watching the movie, that, John and his relationship with his mom is non existent, but he's applying everything that he's learned from his mother in his life now, right? So it's those tactics that mom kind of instilled in him about taking care of himself, not trusting, anyone or anything, that pretty much puts him in the position that he's in, which is like kind of like in survival mode. So he's not your typical teenager in that sense. Obviously, he's doing things he shouldn't be doing. He's riding around motorcycle with his buddies. They're basically stealing cash from ATMs and they're just
Yeah,
going off to play. But it's cool to see the, like you're saying, the parallels, just because it's almost as if John Connor is like this little soldier who's just waiting essentially for, like, his call or his what the Terminator set out to do to protect them, because he's supposed to be this leader of the resistance. So to see him doing that, to see him already, in a sense, be in charge in his own life, you get to see that kind of develop, obviously, throughout the movie. But as you said before, too, like that father son relationship that kind of grows throughout the film. It's a nice touch because John Connor in the beginning, he's very detached, right? He's obviously in a lot of pain emotionally. He didn't grow up with a father. He doesn't understand necessarily why mom's locked up and why she's as crazy as they say she is. And it's nice to see that. And it's nice to see that he ends up actually kind of growing as a person and as a character throughout the
yeah,
film enough to have heart to actually care about someone. And oddly enough, the person that makes him realize that there's more in life than just what he was doing, and there's more to life, and there's love, is a machine. It's the
yeah.
opposite of a human, right? So that's a cool little aspect to the film, that it just teaches you about humanity through the eyes of a robot.
Yeah, and I love that too, because especially there's scenes where John Connor is, telling Terminator don't kill anyone, and he
Yeah.
brings that oath to him.
Why?
Is
Why?
Why? Yeah.
Why?
Or yeah, yeah, and then cause you can,
Yeah.
I like that aspect of the character, but at the same time, he's trying to make the Terminator more human by no problem, no problem, I don't know, I can
No
say that.
problemo.
No
Yeah.
problemo. There we go. English no good though. Uh, as a pizza baby, goes like little slang things. I really enjoyed, and I like that in like Sora in the beginning part when John Connor realizes that the Terminator has to listen to him and kind of makes him a
Hmm.
fool of making him stand with one leg and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
it goes little goofy scenes mixed with like this epic blockbuster action movie has this like perfect balance between character moments and great action that makes this movie perfectly balanced in my
Hmm.
eyes. That makes it a perfect movie essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And even for fans of like the first one, the first one, if you watch that, it's a completely different movie, right? And I don't mean it in like the sense of, it's not like anything new's happening in part two other than the introduction of John Connor, and then now the villain is now the hero. But the movie itself, like it's a completely different tone. The first one plays off more like a straight up horror sci-fi
Yeah.
film, whereas part two is more of that like like action packed, thriller, if you will. And seeing like those little bits, that humor injected in part two is refreshing, but it's also kind of a product of the 90s, because at that time the movies weren't just as straight up hardcore action as they used to be. And when you have a child involved in the film, there is a little bit of humanity that's kind of brought in. So as the audience gets a chance to see this film, it allows us to kind of, release some of that tension that otherwise we'd be feeling if there was never any sort of humor at all. And it's not like ha 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 ha, one liners type of like humor. Like it's very subtle. Him
Yeah.
telling him to lift his leg up, okay, he's doing everything he's doing, but then as the scene goes on, he never tells him to put it back down until midway through that little conversation that he's having with the guys, and he's like, put your leg down, put your leg down. So he has that like moment where Arnold's standing there, he's got his leg up, never says anything, and then we see that happen. So there's like little chuckle moments here and there, but it's never, oh ha ha, like the third one. If you've seen the third one, there's a part where he's, talk to the hand. Oh Jesus Christ! It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts my soul because it uses the character as almost a punchline, whereas part two doesn't do that at all. Part two just
Yeah.
has these moments of humor that we as the audience are learning about via the eyes of John Connor, essentially.
Yeah. Like you said, it was like this movie is sort of a coming to age story for John Connor, like you
Hmm.
said before, because you see this character be like this bad influence, and oh, you realize that there's more to life through a machine, like you said before. But let's go back to the little humor in the beginning when you see the Terminator first come to Earth and he gets his leather jacket, he
Hmm.
has his sunglasses. I mean, like actually before that, when he was naked, everyone was like checking him out. I thought that was a hilarious little funny moment. But it's like imagine if you see Arnold just naked in the bar.
Yeah, yeah, and then the use of the song too, right? Bad to
Mm,
the bone. Like
yeah,
it's you have that little bit of humor. That really is the only time I feel that the movie does anything come almost like it's like outside of the world that we're watching. Like I feel like that moment is for the audience only, whereas all the other humor that happens throughout the movie kind of is, it just kind of takes place in that world and we're watching it. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense because it's like the Terminator we see in his eyes point of view because he's new to being near humanity essentially because he doesn't
Hmm.
really understand the language, he doesn't
Yeah,
understand like the emotions. Like another aspect is when John Connor was first crying, he's like, why are your eyes watering or
yeah,
something like that. Like
yeah.
that's like the piece of things like he's trying to understand humans more. He's like
Hmm.
curious about it, and you see that grow more from the beginning to the end of the film.
Have you had a chance to watch the extended cut?
uh no, not yet. What's up?
Well, no. If you get a chance to watch it, they do expand on Arnold a little bit more in terms of like the whole like him trying to learn more about John. There is more time that is spent on Sarah observing the Terminator interact with her son. It shows him literally standing guard when they drive off to like Mexico. He's standing by a window, and you see like the shot of him standing looking out the window, and it's nighttime, and then it kind of does a crossfade dissolve, and then it's daytime, and he's still standing there like he's always protecting him. And that kind of falls back in line with her saying, the Terminator's always going to be there for him. It would always protect them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to it. I am glad that they cut it, to be honest. I feel like it kind of dragged on a little too long, but it is always cool to see. So if you get a chance to watch the extended cut, it's
Yeah,
worth it. It's got some cool moments.
I definitely will do that. But another thing I like about this movie is, the hi-fi sequence between John Connor and
Hmm.
Terminator. You see like a little thumbs up thing from Terminator, which is like a foreshadow
Hmm.
for the ending. And I
Yeah.
thought that was clever because it goes full circle.
Yeah.
And this movie does have some really cool foreshadowing scenes in there, which is another thing I really appreciate of any sci-fi movie because I like seeing my movies go full circle, like
Yeah.
having hints of like the thumbs up thing, like I said before, just having that moment go full circle. Oh, also moments like Terminator using the one-liners that John Carter thought of them in the car
Yeah.
ride. That I thought that was something really cool that James Cameron does in this film.
Hmm. One of my favorite ones, and it's touching on what you mentioned earlier when he says, "Why do you cry?" When that line hits at the end, after John's yelling, "I order you not to go. I order you not to go," and he sees why he's crying, and then he goes, "I understand now why you cry." I mean, dude, that line,
Dude, yeah, that
it's a tearjerker.
yeah, it's a tearjerker.
It's like, how is this robot, how is Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, robotic voice making me feel all sorts of emotions? But that's the power of the movie, that you have such a simple premise, but it's just these little moments are just written in so well that, like you
Yeah,
said, they come full circle and they're impactful. They're not just random moments to make the audience kind of go, ha, or that's it. There's a reason to them. And that's the beauty of this movie. It's always thinking ahead, and it's always rewarding to the audience, because if you are paying attention, these things are rewarding at the very end.
yeah, most definitely. And that's why makes this movie so perfect because like you said, there's a reason behind everything as context to the story. And I think that works because how well written this movie is. It's a really laser focused script that you
Yeah.
follow and you understand perspectives. Another thing I want to talk about, like going back to the opening when Robert Pack's T-1000 gets the police suit, and he's where he, slowly kills him. Like it's a
Hmm.
very subtle death. I thought that was a really awesome little scene to see this character being like a police officer, acting like he's a good guy, but then he becomes a whole different monster and so determined to go after John Connor. I thought that back and forth between that is something awesome about Robert Pack's performance. What did you think about his performance?
Dude, I thought it was brilliant. I mean, you have such big shoes to fill, right? The Terminator, the original Terminator, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, man larger than life at his prime, just looking gigantic, and is just this monster, this machine coming at you, doesn't stop. It's there to kill you. And then you have the T-1000, which, if you put him side by side to the Terminator, if you were to take the T-1000 and have him stand next to Robert Patrick, like, it's just two different looks, and one is not as intimidating as the other. But the fact that Robert's performance is not just through his physicality, but just the subtlety of his movements, the stone cold look on his face. He's a little guy. He looks small, but he's terrifying. He's probably one of the
Yeah,
most terrifying villains in any movie, because he can almost be He can almost be like anyone. He could be like your neighbor. Like he doesn't look threatening. Remove the police uniform, the guy could just be some random dude walking the dog, and you'll never expect him to be this like
Yeah, exactly.
hardcore killer.
But I think another thing, speaking of that, is his eye movements in the film make him terrifying too.
Hmm.
Like the way they use his eyes, if that makes sense, to like make him look more scarier and
Hmm.
more determined, emotionless to go after John Connor. That's something that makes it smart. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you see Arnold being this big buff Terminator, it's clever to have a smaller character that's more advanced, but it's
Hmm.
utilized in such a unique way by like having subtle eye movements, running up to you in such a terrifying way, and using a whole bunch of weapons in the film. I thought that was just clever, in my eyes at least.
Yeah. And he's again like he's this chameleon because when he shows up to the foster parents' house the first time, he's like, is your boy John Connor whatever available? And she says, or the dad says, I don't know, he's probably out somewhere. And he's like, do you have a picture of him? He looks at the picture and he's like, it's a good looking boy. Do you mind if I keep this picture? Like he's comforting, right? Like he's this, you're not threatened by him at all. Next thing you know, he murdered the dad or he murders the mom, the foster mom first, and then he's pretending to be the foster mom, and he's been in the house the entire time, just waiting for that phone call, and just knifes the dad right in the freaking mouth. Like,
Yeah, and kills a dog.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What's wrong with Wolfie?
yeah. Poor Wolfie. Justice for Wolfie.
Yeah, even though his name wasn't Wolfie, right?
It was Max, I
Max.
believe. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but he
It was,
goes, "What's wrong with Wolfie?" To see Wolfie's fine, honey. Wolfie's just fine. Now tell me
yeah.
where you are.
And that, but I love the Terminator news. Like, oh, your foster parents are dead, man.
Yeah,
The funny thing is, John Connor doesn't even care that his foster parents
no,
are dead. It's like,
no.
he's more curious about the Terminator. Just asking some random questions about the Terminator. I'm like,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, he never refers to them as mom or dad. He calls the foster dad Todd. She's not my mother, Todd. So he
yeah,
clearly doesn't care.
yeah. Cool. It's like, oh, they're dead. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I got a new dad, my Terminator.
yeah, yeah. And then he has to die too, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
At
Excuse me.
at least he has Sarah Connor.
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame knowing where the series went after this because you want to see. I would have, in a perfect world, I'd love to have seen a continuation of this story and seeing Edward Furlong reprise his role as John Connor, obviously Sarah Connor being in the movie, and just seeing him become this leader. But obviously we can't
Yeah.
get all that, so it is a shame. And being this movie being my favorite film of all time, I just kind of treat it like it's in its own little bubble. Like, yeah, I know that
Yeah.
sequels exist, but I don't pay them attention to the way that
Yeah.
T2 is. In my eyes, the Terminator saga ended with part two. I love,
Yes.
I don't know about you, but, and again, and we're not talking about this one, but I love Salvation. A lot of people hate it. I really enjoyed that movie.
Oh yeah,
That's,
Christian Bale as John Connor. That one,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
As I haven't seen it yet. I only seen the
Oh,
first
you got
two.
to see it, dude.
I only seen the first two, man. I'm like,
Well, I guess if you've never seen any of them, just watch them in order. Watch part three, and I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on these afterwards. Genesis is the worst pile of hot garbage on the planet.
yeah.
So you can skip that if you want, but yeah, watch them
I,
all.
I don't know if I can skip it. Emilia Clarke's in it, bro.
Oh God,
Freaking-
I don't understand the hype.
That's fair. It's another thing I like about this movie is the first time John Connor meets the Terminator. You see, the Terminator using like a rose box thing to hide
Hmm.
a gun,
Yeah,
and then you see him firing T-1000, and that's the first time you realistically see how strong this character is.
yeah. He's there's that whole scene. There's a guy. I don't fact check me if I'm wrong on this, but there's a guy in that scene that when they're fighting after they end up shooting out, having a little shootout in the hallway. They end up coming through the department store, and then the T-1000 tosses the Terminator through the glass, of the department
Yeah.
store, and he falls out into the main area of the mall. There's a guy that starts taking photos of him,
Oh
and
yeah.
and it
Yeah, yeah.
cuts to him. So that guy is the police officer in the first one.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't even catch that. Not gonna
yeah.
lie.
And I want to say he's a writer on the movie. I'm not 100% sure, but he is part of the production of the film. So he's in there as like a little like, Easter egg, but he also I want to say he's the writer. Let me look this up and actually see. Of course, there's
Yeah,
no
I mean,
photos.
if he's the writer, I think that'd be a really well, that'd be a really awesome little cameo from the first movie to this film.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna see if I can find his face on the internet. I'm determined to
Pid,
find this man's face. Yeah. Okay. I got him.
oh, you're right,
Yeah. Yeah. William
man.
Howard Peter Wisher Jr. is an American screenwriter known for his work with longtime friend James Cameron on the screenplays for The Terminator and Terminator 2. So yeah, he's the guy
Um,
holding the camera, taking the photos in part 2, and then he's also the police officer in part 1. So
oh,
there
that's
you are.
sick. Yeah, learn something new. This,
See? This is what I'm
yeah.
here to do. I'm here to educate everyone. Let me stop.
um, man. Speaking of the first big action set piece, well, second action set piece, man. John Connor's riding a motorcycle, and you have T-1000 chasing after them, and then Terminator come around. I love the camera work during that scene because it
Yeah.
switches from John Connor to T-1000 to Terminator, and having all three perspectives during that like whole chase sequence. I thought it was beautiful.
Well, and not only that, real stunts, man.
Real,
Like no, like the CGI used in these scenes are to remove wires. Everything else is practical. Like we have a stunt guy on a motorcycle, literally riding off the thing. He's wired into the motorcycle, right? But he's still riding off that. Obviously you can see it's a stunt guy and it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger doing this. Doesn't matter. It just looks badass. And that's why this movie is so good, because it still holds up so well, because when you watch it, you're watching real practical effects, real
yeah.
stunts happening. There is no CGI to distract you to go, oh, they look so fake. How many movies that are recent movies that we watch now, they just don't hold up as well because,
Yeah.
you know,
Like another thing about this, there's no shaky cam. Thank
yeah,
God.
yeah.
It's like straight action, steady cam. You see all what's going to happen during the whole sequence. Nowadays, when Hollywood's trying to do their weird action
All the
movies,
crazy cuts.
crazy quick cuts, shaky cam, you can't even see what's
Do you
going
know why they
on.
do that though?
Nah.
You know what, like one of the big reasons why a lot of this is something that I've learned over the years of like being on sets. They do that because they don't have a lot of faith in the actual sequence. A lot of it is to hide the fact that the main actor can't actually do certain things. You'll see it a lot in fights. Okay,
Yeah.
usually in a lot of fights you'll have that like, and it's cutting to left, right, for by the time you know it, watch any Liam Neeson movie that's from Taken, right?
Oh
It,
yeah, yeah. I
like it's
noticed.
like every moment is a cut scene because they're trying to hide the fact that Liam Neeson isn't really doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
When they have an actual coordinator on set that's directing the action and they have really good action, they'll have a camera sitting wide, nice wide shot on it to showcase that. But when they don't have faith in it, where something doesn't look good, they're constantly cutting left, right, and you end up having a seizure before the movie's over because
Yeah, it's very jarring. It
yeah,
gives me a headache.
yeah,
Brings dizziness to me, especially seeing it in the big screen when it's like a huge screen and seeing
hmm
some quick cuts. Like I saw Expendables 4. Don't ask me
oh
why.
my
And
god,
oh god.
best movie ever.
And, I almost walked out because I was getting nauseous watching
Yeah,
that film because like first of all, you got eco UIs from the Ray movies, and you're doing the
yeah,
weird quick cuts,
you're
camera move.
underutilizing them. Yep.
I'm like,
You literally could have brought his whole team and had them choreograph amazing stuff. You have Jason
yeah,
Statham who kicks ass. You have a bunch of other fighters who could kick ass.
Yeah, Tony Jaw.
Let's use them, but they don't. It's it's these productions that are, they just got to get it done, and there's no
Yeah.
time, there's no prep time, so they, but you, James Cameron, who, I mean, the dude doesn't take no for an answer, and he'll take his sweet time and invest his own money on things. That's why he's out there shooting Avatar 29 and 30 and 31, because he's got all the money in the world to do that, and nobody's telling him to hurry up, because he's like, no, I'm James Cameron. I'll do what
Yeah.
I want when I want.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
it's a shame. It's a shame that it comes to that, but you can expect, usually most of his movies, I mean, they're quality. It doesn't matter if you like them or not. You can't objectively say that they're not good movies in that sense.
Exactly, and like that's another why a reason why I love James Cameron is he really takes his time to craft what he wants to make,
Yeah.
and that's something that you got to respect the guy for. And you don't see a lot of directors doing that nowadays, other than probably Denis and Christopher Nolan, because they're the main three that could think about that take their time to craft something great for us.
Yeah, and Chris Nolan is another guy who I feel like he's studied a lot of, I mean, I can't say for sure, but like I think he grew up watching James Cameron stuff as well, cuz he even takes the practical effect, approach. Anything that you can do on screen, and then we can figure out the rest. Like even with Interstellar, I mean, you watch that thing now and it's like, how the hell did they do that? And then you watch the behind the scenes features and it's like, oh, you guys actually built a ship and you're out here flying this thing by,
Yeah,
it's like, it's crazy.
yeah,
That
like
whole world sequence where it's all water. Oh, like you guys really were in the water. Like what? Just it's absolutely wild. So
like
that stuff's amazing.
another example is the Inception Dream Walk sequence. Because
Yeah.
that he actually made like a
Yeah.
whole set piece to do that. And I thought that was something really cool that he did. It's like the creativity of these guys are there. And I wish more directors had that vision to grab something that they actually want to do instead of half-assing it and putting it out there for us. And then we're like, oh, this is not that good. Like, what
Yeah.
happened? You know,
I
me.
mean, even in Terminator 2, back to that,
Yeah.
like um when the T-1000 tries to get to Sarah Connor at the mental institution, there's a sequence where he comes out of the ground when the police or the security guard,
Yeah.
actually he's a cop, but whatever, he's getting his coffee, and then T-1000's behind him forming, and then all of a sudden he has become the same cop, and they're looking at each other, and he's like, what the hell? Like, they could have done some sequence where it was just like film one actor and then have him stand on the other side and then have like a stand-in, but he thought practically, let's just hire twins.
Yeah.
Like it's simple. You don't have to go crazy, and he got what he wanted out of that. Like little things like that are just so subtle, so easy.
Yeah.
And then you watch other things, like even in that same sequence when he's running through the hall and as he's getting shot, like the holes, the impact holes. When you watch the behind the scenes, he's got like a shirt that has the holes on it, and the stuff is happening so fast, you're not paying attention to that little bit of detail. But you see the holes, you just don't realize it's actually like holes on his shirt designed to look like it's like these like liquid things forming around. It's so clever. It's
Yeah,
so
it's so
so
clever.
genius. It's inspiring for anybody who's out there who wants to be a filmmaker, and you can get away with little things like that, and it's awesome. Just it gives
Yeah.
hope that and people still love to see that. I've never heard of a person complain that Terminator 2 looks bad.
I mean, for a movie that came out 90, what, 99
92,
one,
91,
92, 91, 92.
91. Yeah.
This movie looks better than most recent movies, and
Yeah.
it's kind of wild to think
There
this movie came out in 1992.
there's one shot in the entire movie that looks iffy, and that's when he rolls off the truck.
Oh yeah, that was a little goofy. I thought,
That's the only part where the CGI, didn't hold up well. But then you look at all the other stuff when the T-1000 is melted in the where or in the factory at the end, and he starts like
with liquid nitrogen.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like you see like the liquid start moving, like that's insane. They did that for real.
yeah,
They got a real T-1000, guys, and they made him lift up. No, it's crazy. Like it's just the thought of having magnets underneath the floor and like dragging them around to get the liquid to, dude, genius, genius.
Genius. Yeah, yeah. And we definitely need more directors like James Cameron, for
Yes.
sure. Another sequence I love is during the end, the truck helicopter chase
Yeah,
scene.
it's
Yes,
cool.
I've that was a super dope scene. I feel like they actually did that, didn't
They did.
yeah.
Yeah, they had the helicopter. There was enough clearance to fly the helicopters through. They've done that in a few movies, and I mean, there's been a few movies recently they've done it. I know they did that with the Transformers movies, also in California where they shot the helicopters going through certain areas underneath bridges. But yeah, they shot that whole thing for real, and then would cut to other sequences in the truck, and they would use like not green screen, but they would use like projectors. So for certain shots, they would have like a projection screen behind them, and they would be playing the the dailies that they shot of like the actual like the sequence of like the streets as it was like zooming by. So they would play that behind it if they needed to do some like tight close ups of like some of the actors in the trucks. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's the whole thing is amazing.
Yeah.
Big fan,
And
big fan.
we didn't even talk about like the proper opening where it was like Los Angeles in
Oh yeah,
2029 and seeing goes like gunfire with like the purple gunshots. I thought that was something really cool and such a spectacle in this film. And my name, then we know there's two Terminators, one after John Connor and one protecting John Connor. Let's see which ones go find first, and obviously the right one find John
yeah.
Connor first. I mean, like the plot. If the wrong one find it, the movie would end in what 10 minutes.
Probably, yeah. It's always I always think of that if like somebody would make a like spoof of all of these movies, they would all end within 10 minutes. None of them would go past 10 minutes. They'd get to a point where they got the guy and then credits roll. It's like those memes with what is that song that they use? Curb Your Enthusiasm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea, man.
There's these memes that happen where it's like somebody says something really stupid and then you hear the music kick in. It's like bum 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 ba-da-dum, da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. It's so dumb. So that's what I think of. The movie would have ended in 10 minutes and John Connor would have been dead. The world would have come to an end, and we'd all be property
Term
of you know Skynet. So there you go.
will be terminated.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually trying to see if there was like any like things that I didn't know about. I'm just looking up trivia on it right now.
Oh,
It says this is the only Terminator film to win or be nominated for an Oscar. It
oh.
won 4 out of the 6 it was nominated for. Interesting.
Which one's the one though?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out, but it doesn't say which ones they won.
Mo-
Also,
most most likely most visual effects. It has to
I
win
would
that,
imagine
right?
so.
Yeah.
I would say maybe score. Like
Score, yeah, score is great too. Yeah,
score is
yeah.
beautiful. It says the production took sufficiently long that Edward Furlong's growth caused the production team to have to make certain adjustments during the shoot. He is noticeably younger in the desert scene than in other scenes. His voice began to break and had to be pitch adjusted in post production. He
Ooh.
also had grown quite tall over the months that for one scene shot late in the production schedule, he had to stand in a hole in the ground in order to maintain continuity and height difference with Linda Hamilton. That's wild.
That's wild.
That's what happens when you have kids. You hire kid actors. They always say don't do it
Yeah.
because it's a nightmare.
And speaking of Sarah Connor, I love her growth in this movie, but obviously she is in this psych hospital thing, and then no one's really believing her about the Terminator, and she's kind of having a mental breakdown because of that, because of the events of the first movie that the Terminator was going after her. And then you see Sarah Connor is determined to escape, but I love the interaction when she first sees the Terminator and she freaks out because the first time she saw a Terminator like that was trying to kill her.
Yeah.
And this time around, it's like this one's trying to protect John Connor, and I thought that was a really awesome sequence. Also, the whole beach sequence when she was wearing the sunglasses,
Hmm.
looking like an absolute badass with the cigarette. I thought that was awesome little scene, and Linda Hamilton looks like an absolute badass. I mean,
Yeah. Sarah Connor is one of the final girls. Like she is like, she's in my top three of like the most badass women in movies. You have Sarah Connor, you have Ellen Ripley. Those are like icons in the
Furiosa.
genre. Furiosa's got a lot to prove um, before we can throw her up there with Ellen Ripley's or Sarah Connor's. But she's badass though. Don't get me wrong. Furiosa's character, I preferred Charlize Theron's Furiosa character versus the Furiosa movie, nonetheless, but still a badass character. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very very strong female characters for sure. But yeah, I mean, when you think of like strong women in movies, strong female characters, I immediately think of Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley definitely goes to her up there for sure.
I would say the bride from Kill
Oh, the
Bill.
bride, yeah, Kill Bill, yes.
Like, I wouldn't with any of them. None of them.
Especially the bride. You know,
Yeah,
she goes
she'll murder
crazy.
your whole family.
I'm good, you know what I mean?
Look at this. I just saw this on here. It says Karolko studio executives, they were really nervous and concerned when the original budget of the $75 million for the movie ballooned up to $88 million. So back in the day, I mean, we're talking 75 million was the budget. It went up to 88 million. And then they said there was more to come. It says in order to keep the budget manageable, they proposed to eliminate a few scenes, particularly the opening biker bar scene where the Terminator was introduced. They tried to get Arnold Schwarzenegger to persuade James Cameron to remove that scene, but Schwarzenegger turned them down, saying only a studio guy would cut out a scene like that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Pretty gangster.
Pretty gang. Well, that's Arnold, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But another thing was interesting about this movie was when Sarah Connor was going after Miles.
Yeah.
She could have done like a conversation with the guy.
She was a little angry. I mean, she's probably over conversations, but I feel bad for Mr. Miles Dyson.
Oh yeah, he brought to sacrifice himself, man. He did not deserve to die,
No,
bro.
no. That was. I remember seeing that scene as a kid, and I always hated it because in my eyes, like he was. I mean, he still is. Even watching it now, he was innocent. Yeah, he went ahead and created something, but he didn't know that. He didn't know what he was creating was gonna create destruction like that. So it always bothered me as a kid, and that scene freaked me out too. Obviously, because you have Arnold just cutting his arm, and
Oh yeah.
just I mean, that's so sick. The whole prosthetics on that is amazing.
But I love the fact that John Carter just brings his son somewhere else before
Yeah,
that happens. I'm like
yeah,
because if his son saw that, he'd be traumatized
yeah, yeah,
for his whole life,
yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, I always it just that scene always got to me. And then you think about like the fact that he had a wife and he had a kid, right? So as he's sitting there dying, it's like as a kid you're just like, "Oh no, what happens to the son?"
Yeah.
I always just imagined that and I was like, "Oh, that sucks."
Yeah, that does suck. And I love the shootout sequence like during that whole thing
Yeah,
too.
that was cool.
Especially with Terminator just doing leg shots because obviously John Connor
Yeah,
said
yeah.
don't kill no people and he's just doing leg shots and well he bro uses a grenade launcher, doesn't he? Or like
Yeah, so he uses the grenade launcher, but he puts smoke bombs in it.
oh yeah, smoke bombs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he ends up shooting a guy with the smoke bomb, and it just like sends him across the room. It
Yeah.
must have hurt a lot. It's
But
so funny.
I like the fact that he gets damaged and you see the little bit of red on his face
Hmm.
too. Like you see like kind of the Terminator skull, and I
Yeah,
thought that was like a nice little piece of detail too, right?
yeah, that's the iconic look when people think of the Terminator with the pieces of metal kind of showing through the skin, and most of like the memorabilia that exists. A lot of the like figures that are made from like different companies, like Sideshow Collectibles and all these other big companies that make like the statues. That's usually the face that they go for. They never really go for the clean looking version. They'll always go with the one that has the pieces of like skin like ripped off on the face because it just looks badass.
Yeah, it does look badass, and it took so much to take down T-1000. Like it took
Mhm.
Sarah Connor shooting him. He wasn't going to
Yeah,
the fire pit, and then you see the sequence where Terminator does sneak around and finally shoot him, and then he finally falls to the fire. Such a great way to end the film. Well, obviously, close to the end of the film.
yeah,
After, yeah,
yeah. That whole climax is intense. I mean, all the little pieces that are kind of like put together for us to get to that moment at the end when he's coming up the whatever that little conveyor belt thing is, and he just
yeah,
shoots that one round that was left, that one round that fell off in the middle of the fight beforehand, because that's what it was. He was putting in that one round, and then I think the gun got knocked down. I forget, but you see that round fall to the bottom, and that is like, hey, hint, hint, this is gonna come in handy in the next couple of minutes. And sure enough, it's the end of the T-1000. They actually were gonna bring originally they were going to have Michael Biehn play the T-1000, which is who played Kyle Reese in the first Terminator.
um,
But they, I think they did like a questionnaire or something, and like for like audience members of like the first one, and they said that was like too confusing. So
yeah. But I'm glad Robert Patrick got it
yeah,
because I mean he did a perfect job. Like
yeah,
I don't see no one else playing that character that
yeah,
well.
yeah. They have I forgot who it was that played him in Terminator Genesis, but it wasn't memorable. So I can't even remember.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a Terminator franchise cannot go too long, and I think that is such a clear understanding because I feel like it shouldn't end in three movies. At least James Cameron, I wish, came back to direct the last one
Yeah.
just to get it done or over with, get his trilogy done. But I don't know why he didn't decide. Do you know why he didn't decide to do a third
I
one?
know that he
Well,
was supposed to, and they were going to do it, but they wanted to go in a whole different direction than what the studio wanted to do.
ah,
And there was some, damn it, I don't know if this was, no, I think the legal rights had something to do with Terminator 1, so that's nothing to do with it. But yeah, from what I understood was that there was a script that was written. That's what they were originally going to shoot, and that's what James Cameron was going to come back. Everyone was supposed to come back, and they were going in a whole different direction. The studio was like, nah, like this is we need to make money. And then James Cameron walked away from it, and then I think Arnold got paid more because of that, so that
yeah,
he wouldn't leave. And I think that was the issue too with the movies, is like that they relied too much on making Arnold the guy, because at that point Arnold's career like took off. It wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger from Terminator 1 is not the same star power as Arnold Schwarzenegger of Terminator 2. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger of Terminator 2 is not the same star power of Terminator 3. So they're relying on that more than a really solid storyline. And I wouldn't say Terminator 3 is bad. I enjoyed Terminator 3. At the time, it just sucked that it wasn't James Cameron, that we didn't have Edward Furlong play, John Connor. And then without spoiling it, there's things that I just didn't like at the time, but like looking back at it now, it still is a good movie. It's just not in line. It's just not the same. It doesn't feel the same as one or two. It's a good
yeah.
movie, but it's not. I don't feel like it's there.
I feel like it's literally impossible to top the first two movies
Yeah,
because
you
I feel
can't.
like they're both 5 stars and they're sim different reasons. Because
Hmm.
the first one makes you fear the Terminator being Arnold. The second one makes you love this character of Terminator played by Arnold. I messed
Yeah.
up his name by accident,
Who's
but you
Arner?
know.
Never heard of this Arner.
And is there anything else you might add, or we good?
um, no, I think that's it. I
I
think
think we
that's.
I
I
think
think
we
we covered. We
covered.
covered. We covered all of it. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure. Um, No. There's one thing. This is random. This is for the older audience. So if you have anyone that's older like me, anyone that's a grandpa like me, there's a girl in the movie who gets asked if they've seen this boy, and it's a T1000. It's before he shows up to the mall, and he asks these two girls, and one of those girls is Nikki Cox, who was on a TV show back in the day. This she was so young, and then a lot of people didn't recognize her. But if you know who Nikki Cox is, you're welcome. So that's all I got to say. That's all I'm saying on that. Little Easter egg there for you.
I'm lost now. Who's Nikki Cox?
See, there you go. That's like I said, it's just not for you. It's for the old heads and that you may have in here or may not. But she was on a TV show called Unhappily Ever After, and she was like at that time. Who you mentioned the girl from what's it called? Amelia or Emily? What's her name from?
Emilia Clarke.
Okay, you know how excited you got about Amelia Clark when you're like, but it's got Amelia Clark and it like your eyes lit up, because
I
it's like
get.
love, right?
Oh,
Nikki, well, lust, whatever, same difference. Nikki Cox was that for a lot of guys my age. So,
yeah,
to see her in that movie like years later, because you're a kid watching it, you see another kid and you don't know who the hell that is, and then years later, you watch the show and you freaking love Nikki Cox, who's amazing in it, and then you see the movie again, you're like, holy shit, that's her. It's like these little moments where you see certain movies and you're just like, oh my god, that guy was in it. Like Eli Roth, you know who Eli Roth is?
yeah, dude.
Yeah, he was in Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't actually.
Yeah, he's a random extra on a train for like 3 seconds. And I'm like, wait a minute, is that Eli Roth? Sure enough, it's him just chilling in a train. So it's just like little things like that that I find so funny when I'll see something. So that's that one scene in the movie where Terminator 2 where I recognize somebody who used to be somebody that I used to, watch on another show. Anyways,
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for coming on here to talk
yeah,
about
man.
Terminator 2. Have a great talk with you, man. All
Yeah,
right.
likewise, man. Thank you for
All
having
right.
me.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.